She threw a spear to kill him, but he targeted it. Now, by alien law, she must obey him. Jake Miller stood in the middle of the alien council chamber, surrounded by tall blue-skinned beings. Their large eyes stared at him with a mixture of awe and concern. He still couldn't believe what had happened just hours ago. The female warrior, Kiazara, stood at the edge of the circle, her arms crossed and her face twisted in anger. Her skin was a deeper blue than the others, with markings that Jake guessed showed her rank or clan. Unlike the peaceful welcome he'd expected on this expedition, his first encounter with the Zoraxians had nearly ended with a spear through his chest. "So let me get this straight," Jake said, looking at the eldest alien who seemed to be in charge. "Because I caught her spear, she now belongs to me. That can't be right." The elder Zoraxian, Vorthal, nodded his long, slender neck. "This is our way for 10,000 cycles. The hunter's challenge is sacred. When a warrior's weapon is caught rather than finding its mark, the warrior becomes bound to the one who proved superior." Jake ran his hand through his dark hair, feeling sweat on his forehead despite the cool air. "But I don't want to own anyone. That's not how humans work." "It is not about ownership as you understand it," Vorthal explained, his voice deep and rhythmic. "It is a bond of honor and service until a great deed releases her from the obligation." Kiazara finally spoke, her voice sharp and filled with fury. "I will not serve this alien. He trespassed on sacred hunting grounds. He deserves punishment, not my service." The council chamber filled with murmurs. Jake noticed several Zoraxians touching the symbol on their chests, a spiral mark that seemed important to their culture. "The law is absolute," another elder said. "Never in our history has an outsider caught the hunter's spear. This is perhaps why the stars brought this human to us." Jake remembered the moment clearly. He had been exploring the forest, taking samples for Earth's first contact mission, when something moved in the trees. Then came the attack. A blur of blue and the flash of a spear flying toward him. Years of baseball in his youth had made catching fast objects second nature. He hadn't fought. He'd just reached out and grabbed it. Now he was stuck in what seemed like an ancient alien custom with no way out. "Look," Jake said, trying to sound diplomatic, "I appreciate your traditions, but there must be some way to resolve this that doesn't involve servitude. Where I come from." A loud horn interrupted him. The chamber doors burst open, and a wounded Zoraxian guard stumbled in. "The Drakari approach. They have weapons and demand the human." The elders rose in alarm. Vorthal turned to Jake. "The Drakari are a rival clan. Somehow they have learned of your arrival and your feat with the spear. This is grave news." "Why would they want me?" Jake asked, suddenly worried about more than just cultural misunderstandings. "Any being who can catch a hunter's spear must possess special power," Vorthal explained quickly. "The Drakari would use such power for conquest. They have long wanted to overthrow our peaceful ways." Outside, shouting and the sound of weapons clashing grew louder. Kiazara, despite her obvious dislike for Jake, moved closer to him, her hand on her knife. "We must move the outsider to safety," she said reluctantly. "As much as it shames me, he is my responsibility now." Vorthal nodded. "Take him through the temple passages. Reach the forest sanctuary. We will hold off the Drakari as long as possible." Jake wanted to protest, to stay and help somehow, but the urgency in everyone's movements told him this danger was real. "I have equipment back at my landing pod. Things that might help us." Kiazara grabbed his arm, her grip strong. "There is no time. The Drakari will have already found your sky vessel. We go now." She pulled him toward a small door at the back of the chamber just as the main doors shook with the force of something heavy ramming against them. "What about your people?" Jake asked as they hurried down a narrow corridor lit with strange blue crystals. "Our warriors will fight. It is what we do." Her voice was cold, but Jake sensed worry beneath the harshness. They reached a stone wall that looked solid until Kiazera pressed her hand against a symbol. The wall slid open, revealing a dark tunnel. "This leads beneath the settlement and into the forest," she explained. "Stay close and be silent." As they entered the tunnel, Jake heard the chamber doors break open behind them, and angry shouts fill the air. The stone door closed silently, plunging them into darkness except for the faint glow of fungus on the walls. "I can't see as well as you probably can," Jake whispered. Without a word, Kiazera took his hand. Her skin felt cool and slightly rough, like fine sandpaper. She guided him through the darkness at a quick pace. "Why would catching a spear make me so valuable to these Drakari?" Jake asked after several minutes of silent walking. "Our legends speak of star people with special abilities," Kiazera replied reluctantly. "The Drakari believe these legends more strongly than most. They think you must be what our ancient stories foretold." "And what do you believe?" She was quiet for a moment before answering. "I believe you were lucky. Nothing more." They emerged from the tunnel into thick forest. The 3 moons of Zoraxis cast an eerie purple light through the canopy. Strange calls of alien wildlife echoed around them. "We must keep moving," Kiazera said. "The Drakari have excellent trackers." Jake looked back toward the settlement. Smoke rose above the trees, and flashes of light suggested weapons being fired. "Your people are fighting because of me," he said, feeling guilty. "They fight for our laws and traditions," she corrected him. "The Drakari have long waited for an excuse to attack us. If not you, they would have found another reason." As they pushed deeper into the forest, Jake noticed Kiazera constantly checking behind them. Despite her obvious dislike for him, she was taking her duty seriously. "So how do we break this bond?" Jake asked. "You mentioned a great deed. A life debt must be repaid with a life saved," she explained curtly. "I must save you from certain death, or you must release me after I complete an impossible task. Neither seems likely to happen soon." A distant roar made them both freeze. It wasn't like any animal Jake had heard on Earth. "Drakari war beast," Kiazera whispered. "They hunt by scent." "Great," Jake muttered. "So where are we heading?" "There is a sacred place deeper in the forest where Drakari cannot follow. A temple older than our oldest stories." She looked at him with narrowed eyes. "Perhaps there we will learn why the stars really brought you here, human who catches spears." As they continued through the alien forest, Jake couldn't help wondering if catching that spear had been the worst luck of his life, or perhaps the beginning of something much bigger than he could imagine. Dawn broke over the forest of Zoraxis, casting strange shadows through the alien trees. Jake and Kiazera had traveled through the night, pushing deeper into the wilderness. They now rested at the edge of a small clearing, both exhausted but too wary to truly sleep. "We should be safe here for a short time," Kiazera said, her blue skin gleaming in the morning light. She kept her distance from Jake, sitting on a rock and sharpening her knife with smooth, practiced motions. Jake checked the small devices attached to his wrist. The scanner was still working, but his communication link to the Earth ship in orbit showed only static. "The Drakari are blocking signals," he guessed, tapping the device in frustration. "Or maybe it's these rock formations. Either way, my team won't know what happened to me." Kiazera looked up from her knife. "Your sky people, they will search for you." "Eventually," Jake nodded. "But it could take days. We were supposed to be separated for a week of independent exploration." The alien warrior stood up suddenly, her head tilted as she listened. Jake had quickly learned that Zoraxian hearing was far better than human ears. He froze, waiting. After a moment, Kiazera relaxed slightly. "Just a herd of tall necks passing nearby." She looked at Jake with obvious disapproval. "You make too much noise when you move. The Drakari will find us easily if you continue stomping through the forest like a wounded grazer." "Sorry we humans don't all grow up hunting in alien forests," Jake replied, his patience wearing thin from hunger and lack of sleep. To his surprise, something like a smile flickered across Kiazera's face. "True," You are not trained for this world." She reached into a pouch at her belt and pulled out some dried purple strips. "You must eat to keep your strength. These are safe for you." Jake accepted the food cautiously. "How do you know what's safe for humans?" "Our scouts observed your kind when you first arrived. We know what plants and animals you have consumed without harm." She watched him take a bite. "We are not savages, despite what you may think." The dried strips tasted like a mixture of mango and pine nuts. Strange, but not unpleasant. Jake felt energy returning to his tired muscles as he ate. "I never thought you were savages," he said after finishing the food. "Just different. That's why I'm here. To learn about new worlds and new people." Kyocera studied him for a moment. "Yet you brought weapons to our world." "Research equipment, not weapons," Jake corrected her. "Though I wish I had something more useful right now." He gestured to his small pack. "All I have is my sample kit, water purifier, and some basic medical supplies." "Show me," she demanded. Jake emptied his pack between them. Kyocera picked up each item, examining it with careful interest. The water purifier especially caught her attention. "This small thing cleans water of all dangers?" she asked. Jake nodded. "It filters out bacteria, parasites, and most toxins. Not perfect, but better than nothing. We have sacred springs for pure water, but they are rare. This would be valuable to my people." She handed it back to him, a new respect in her eyes. "Maybe we can help each other," Jake suggested. "Your knowledge of this forest keeps us alive. My technology might make things easier." Before Kyocera could respond, a distant howl echoed through the trees. Her body tensed immediately. "War beasts," she whispered. "They have picked up our trail." "How far?" Jake asked, quickly packing his gear. "Too close. We must reach the river." She pointed east. "The water will hide our scent." They moved quickly through the forest, Kyocera leading the way with silent grace, while Jake did his best to match her pace without making noise. The sounds of pursuit grew louder behind them. When they reached the river, Jake saw it was wider and faster than he expected, with strange purple plants growing along the banks. "We cross here," Kyocera said, already wading into the water. Jake followed her but stopped when his scanner started beeping. "Wait. There's something in the water. My scanner is picking up large life forms moving toward us." Kyocera froze mid-step. "Spirit fish. They rarely come to this part of the river." A large shadow moved beneath the surface, circling toward them. Jake quickly pulled out his sample laser, adjusting the settings to maximum power. "Get back to the shore," he told her. Slowly, the water erupted as a massive eel-like creature lunged at Kyocera. Without hesitation, Jake fired the laser. The intense beam struck the creature's eye, causing it to shriek and thrash away in pain. "Run," Jake shouted, grabbing Kyocera's arm and pulling her toward the shore. They barely made it to land before two more spirit fish broke the surface, snapping their long jaws at the air where they had just been. "How did you know?" Kyocera asked, breathing hard. Jake held up his scanner. "Technology. It detects life forms and movement." For the first time, she looked at him with something other than disdain. "Perhaps your star tools have value after all." "The river's not an option anymore," Jake said, looking back the way they had come. "And those war beasts are still coming." Kyocera nodded toward a steep cliff face nearby. "There is another way. The high paths are dangerous, but the Drakari war beasts cannot climb well." They reached the cliff just as howls echoed from the forest edge. Jake glimpsed large, six-legged creatures breaking through the trees, followed by blue-skinned hunters with red markings, Drakari warriors. "Climb," Kyocera ordered, already finding handholds in the rock face. The climb was treacherous. Several times, Jake's grip slipped on the strange, smooth stone. Each time, Kyocera reached down to steady him, her strength surprising him. "Why help me?" he asked after she pulled him past a particularly difficult section. I thought you hated being bound to me. I hate being bound, she admitted, but I will not let you die and bring shame to my honor. Besides, the Drakari must not have you or your strange powers. When they finally reached a narrow ledge halfway up the cliff, they paused to rest. Below, the Drakari hunters searched along the riverbank, their war beasts sniffing the ground where Jake and Kiazara had stood. They will not find our trail easily, Kiazara said, but they will not give up. Jake looked ahead along the narrow mountain path. Where does this lead? To the ancient temple I spoke of. It is perhaps a day's journey along these heights. She pointed to strange pillars visible in the distance, barely distinguishable from the natural rock formations. The Temple of First Light, a place sacred to all Zoraxian clans, even the Drakari. It is said to hold wisdom from the stars themselves. Wisdom from the stars, Jake repeated. You mean from other aliens? Other visitors like me? Kiazara's expression became guarded. Perhaps. The temple was old when my ancestors first settled these lands. The markings inside are unlike any Zoraxian writing. As they continued along the narrow path, Jake felt a strange sensation, a pull toward the distant temple. Something about those ancient pillars seemed to call to him, though he couldn't explain why. Kiazara, he said quietly, what exactly do your legends say about star people? She was silent for a long moment before answering. They say that long ago, beings fell from the sky in vessels of fire. They taught our ancestors many things, then promised to return when Zoraxis needed them most. Her eyes fixed on Jake with an intensity that made him uncomfortable. The legends say they could catch weapons with their bare hands, just as you did with my spear. That's probably just coincidence, Jake said, though he felt a chill run down his spine. Perhaps, she replied. But the Temple of First Light may tell us more. If you truly are connected to the ancient star people, the temple will reveal it. As the alien suns climbed higher in the sky, Jake and Kiazara made their way toward the mysterious temple, neither fully trusting the other, but both knowing their survival depended on working together and perhaps discovering why Jake had really been drawn to this distant world. The Temple of First Light loomed before them, ancient stone pillars reaching toward the alien sky. After a full day of travel along the treacherous mountain paths, Jake and Kiazara finally stood at the temple entrance. Massive doors covered in strange symbols gleamed in the light of Zoraxis' setting suns. No one has entered this place in generations, Kiazara said, her voice hushed with reverence. Only the high elders are permitted, and only during sacred ceremonies. Jake studied the symbols etched into the stone. They looked like no language he had ever seen, yet something about them seemed oddly familiar. He reached out and traced a spiral pattern with his finger. I feel like I should understand this, he murmured. Kiazara watched him closely. The teachings say only those with star blood can open the temple doors. Jake's hand lingered on the stone. I'm just a scientist, not some legendary star person. I was born on Earth like any other human. Yet as he spoke, memories flashed through his mind. Strange dreams he'd had since childhood, his unexplained interest in astronomy from an early age, the way he had always felt drawn to the stars. Even his decision to join the Zoraxis exploration mission had come from a feeling he couldn't explain, a certainty that he needed to be here. Try, Kiazara urged, her earlier hostility replaced by curiosity. Jake pressed his palm flat against the central symbol, a circle surrounded by 7 rays. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the stone began to glow with soft blue light that spread outward, illuminating each symbol in sequence. A low rumbling sound came from deep within the temple, and slowly the massive doors began to open. It's responding to you, Kiazara whispered, her large eyes wide with amazement. Jake stared at his hand, then at the opening doors. That's impossible. Not for one with star blood, she replied. Inside, the temple was a single vast chamber with a domed ceiling. Thin beams of light streamed through precisely placed openings, illuminating a circular platform in the center. The walls were covered with the same strange symbols that had decorated the doors. "This is incredible," Jake said, his scientific mind racing to make sense of the architecture. "This building doesn't match anything in Zoraxian history that we studied." "Because it was not built by my people," Kyocera confirmed. She pointed to markings along the floor, a timeline of sorts, with images showing blue-skinned figures meeting taller beings who came from the sky. As they moved deeper into the temple, the light changed, responding to their presence. Images on the walls seemed to come alive, projecting three-dimensional scenes into the air around them. Jake saw stars and planets, spacecraft, and strange beings. "It's some kind of advanced technology," he realized. "Not magic or religious artifacts. This is a database, a historical record." Kyocera touched one of the projections, a map of stars. "These are the 7 sister worlds. Our legends speak of them." Jake recognized the star pattern. "That's the Pleiades cluster, from Earth's perspective." His heart raced. "Kyocera, that's where I'm from. That sector of space." Before she could respond, a new projection appeared at the center of the room, a figure that looked remarkably human standing beside a Zoraxian. Between them was a symbol, 2 hands clasped together, one human, one alien. "The joining of worlds," Kyocera read from the Zoraxian text beneath the image. "The prophecy of peace." Jake's mind flashed back to Earth, to the reason he had been so determined to join this mission. During his training, he had discovered ancient cave paintings showing humanoid figures alongside star maps pointing to this very solar system. His colleagues had dismissed it as coincidence, but Jake had been convinced there was a connection. That's why he had requested to join the Zoraxis exploration team, why he had ventured away from the landing site alone. "I think our worlds have been connected before," Jake said slowly. "Long ago. Maybe humans and Zoraxians weren't always strangers to each other." A noise at the temple entrance interrupted them. Jake and Kyocera turned to see 3 Drakari warriors standing in the doorway, weapons drawn. "The human opens the sacred temple," the lead warrior said, his voice deep and threatening. "This proves what we have always believed. The star blood has returned, and we will be the ones to control its power." Kyocera drew her knife, stepping protectively in front of Jake. "This place is sacred to all clans. You dishonor our ancestors by bringing weapons here." "The old ways are changing," the Drakari leader replied. "With the star blood and its secrets, we will rule all of Zoraxis." Jake looked around desperately for something to use as a weapon. His eyes fell on a staff mounted on the wall, marked with the same 7-pointed star he had seen at the entrance. Without thinking, he grabbed it. The moment his fingers touched the staff, it hummed to life, glowing with the same blue energy that had opened the doors. The Drakari warriors hesitated, clearly unnerved. "Stand with me," Jake said to Kyocera, surprising himself with his own confidence. Side by side, they faced the intruders. Jake had no idea how to use the staff, but somehow his body seemed to know. When the first Drakari charged, Jake swung the staff in an arc, creating a barrier of energy that knocked the warrior back. Kyocera moved with incredible speed, her knife flashing as she engaged the second warrior. They fought together as if they had trained for years, each anticipating the other's movements. The lead Drakari warrior circled them, looking for an opening. "You cannot escape. More of my clan approach. The temple will be ours before nightfall." "This temple belongs to no one clan," Kyocera shot back. "It is the heritage of all Zoraxians." As the battle continued, strange energy patterns began to appear on the floor around them. The temple itself seemed to be responding to the conflict, projecting more images on the walls, scenes of past battles, alliances formed and broken, Zoraxians and humans fighting both against and alongside each other. "Jake," Kyocera called out as she fended off another attack. "The central platform. I think it's trying to show us something." Fighting their way toward the center of the chamber, Jake and Kyocera moved in perfect harmony. With each step, The connection between them seemed to strengthen. Jake could almost sense what she would do before she moved, and she responded to his actions with uncanny precision. When they reached the central platform, the floor beneath them began to glow. The Drakari warriors backed away, suddenly fearful. "This is the heart of the temple," Kyazera said, breathing hard from the fight. "The place where the ancient bond was sealed." Jake felt a strange sensation, as if invisible threads were connecting him to Kyazera and to the temple itself. The staff in his hand pulsed with energy. "I think I understand now," he said quietly. "This isn't about me owning you or you serving me. The spear catching. It was a test, a way to identify those who could renew the old alliance." As he spoke, the projections around them changed again, showing the complete prophecy, humans and Zoraxians standing together against a greater threat from beyond the stars. The joining of worlds was never about conquest, Kyazera realized. It was about partnership. The Drakari leader stepped forward, his weapon lowered. Something in the temple's revelations had affected him deeply. "The elders spoke of this," he admitted reluctantly. "But we believe the star people would come as conquerors we must control, not as equals." Outside the temple, they could hear more voices approaching. Through the open doors, Jake saw both Drakari warriors and Kyazera's people arriving together, drawn by the temple's awakening. "I think," Jake said, looking at Kyazera with new understanding, "this is just the beginning." The temple chamber filled with Zoraxians from both clans, their ancient rivalry temporarily forgotten as they witnessed the marvel before them. The central platform where Jake and Kyazera stood continued to glow, projecting images of the past and possible futures into the air around them. Vorthal, the elder from Kyazera's village, pushed through the crowd. His aged face showed both wonder and concern. "The prophecy awakens," he said, bowing his head toward Jake. "For generations, we have guarded this temple, waiting for the return of the star blood. Now we understand why the human caught the spear." Jake still held the glowing staff, its energy pulsing in time with his heartbeat. "I'm starting to think that wasn't an accident," he admitted. "Something brought me to that exact spot at that exact moment." Kyazera stood close beside him, her earlier resentment completely gone. "The hunter's challenge was always a test," she said. "Not of ownership, but of connection." The leader of the Drakari stepped forward, his red clan markings stark against his blue skin. "Our ancestors told a different version of the prophecy. They said the star people would return to rule us. Or perhaps," Jake suggested, "that's what your ancestors wanted to believe. Power is tempting in any culture." The temple responded to his words, showing new images on the walls, scenes of conflict between Zoraxian clans, followed by images of a greater threat approaching from deep space. "What is that?" someone asked, pointing to the projection of massive ships unlike any Zoraxian or human design. Vorthal's expression darkened. "The Devourers. Our oldest legends speak of them. Beings who destroyed worlds before the Star People helped us hide Zoraxis." Jake looked at the projected images with growing concern. The alien ships in the projection looked disturbingly similar to unidentified craft that Earth's deep space telescopes had detected at the edge of the solar system just before he left. Reports that had been classified but which he had accessed through his science division clearance. "They're coming back," he said quietly. "Not just to your world, but to mine too." The revelation hung in the air. Both Zoraxian clans looked to Jake and Kyazera, standing together on the platform. "The prophecy speaks of 7 worlds united," Vorthal said. "7 sister worlds that must stand together when the Devourers return." Jake thought of Earth, alone and unprepared. "My people don't know about any of this. We've only just begun to explore beyond our solar system." "Then they must be warned," Kyazera said, her hand finding Jake's. "And the other worlds too." The temple hummed, responding to their touch. The central platform opened, revealing a crystal chamber beneath. Inside lay 7 small devices, each bearing the symbol of the 7-pointed star. "The keys of union," Vorthal breathed. Said to be lost for 10,000 years. Jake released Kyocera's hand and knelt beside the chamber. The devices were clearly technological, not magical or mystical. They resembled small data storage units, but far more advanced than anything humans had created. I think these contain coordinates, Jake said, examining one of the devices. Star maps to the 7 worlds. Maybe even plans for defenses against these devourers. Then you must take them, the Drukhari leader said, surprising everyone. Our clans have fought over scraps of the prophecy when we should have been preparing for its fulfillment. Kyocera looked at Jake. This changes everything. The bond between us is not about ancient law anymore. It never was, Jake replied. It was about bringing our peoples together. A rumbling sound from outside interrupted the moment. The temple shook, dust falling from the ancient ceiling. What's happening? Jake asked, clutching the staff for balance. One of the Drukhari warriors burst into the chamber. Ships, strange ships in the sky. They are attacking both villages. The projections on the temple walls change, showing real-time images of what was happening outside. Massive dark vessels hovered over the forest, firing weapons that scorched the land below. The devourers, Vorthal whispered, they have found us sooner than the prophecy foretold. Jake looked at the 7 devices, then at Kyocera. A decision crystallized in his mind. I need to get back to my ship, he said. I can take these to Earth, warn my people, but I won't leave your world defenseless. The temple's defenses, Vorthal said. The legends say only star blood can activate them. Jake nodded, understanding what he had to do. Kyocera, can you lead your people to safety? I will not leave you, she said firmly. Whatever happens, we face it together. The temple shook again, harder this time. Outside, the sounds of destruction grew closer. We need to hurry, Jake said. With the staff in one hand and the 7 devices secured in his pack, Jake moved to the center of the platform. Kyocera stood beside him, her warrior's stance proud and determined. What must we do? She asked. Jake closed his eyes, letting instinct guide him. He placed the staff in a small indentation at the center of the platform that he somehow knew would be there. The blue energy surged, connecting with the temple systems. Everyone take cover, he shouted to the gathered Zoraxians. The temple hummed, energy flowing through ancient circuits that had lain dormant for millennia. The dome above them opened, revealing the sky where the devourer ships loomed. Jake knew without being told what to do next. He and Kyocera placed their hands on the staff together. A beam of intense blue light shot upward from the temple, striking the nearest enemy ship. The vessel shuddered, then began to break apart. It works, someone shouted. But Jake could feel the temple's energy system straining. This won't hold them for long. The defenses are too old, too weakened by time. Outside, more enemy ships were appearing. The temple weapon struck another, but its energy was already fading. We need to get to my ship, Jake said urgently. It's our only chance to warn the other worlds. Vorthal approached them. Go, take the keys. Find the other 6 worlds. We will hold them here as long as we can. I can't just leave your people to fight alone, Jake protested. You must, the Drukhari leader said. The prophecy is clear. One must go to unite the 7. Kyocera gripped Jake's arm. I'm coming with you. My place is with you now, not by ancient law but by choice. Jake looked at her, seeing determination in her alien eyes. He nodded. Together then. As the temple continued to fire at the enemy ships, Jake, Kyocera, and a small group of warriors from both clans slipped out through a hidden passage. They would need to reach Jake's landing pod, hopefully still intact, and then somehow get to the human ship in orbit. If we survive this, Jake said as they ran through the forest, the sky burning above them, I'll have to explain to my superiors why I'm bringing an alien warrior home with me. Despite the danger, Kyocera smiled. Tell them I caught you, human. By ancient law, you belong to me now." Jake laughed, surprising himself in the midst of chaos. "I think we belong to each other." As they raced toward the landing pod, the 7 devices secure in Jake's pack, both knew that this was just the beginning. The true challenge lay ahead, uniting 7 worlds against an ancient enemy, bringing together cultures that had never met, and somehow finding a way to stand against the devourers. But they would face it together, the human who caught a spear and the alien warrior who found her destiny, bound not by ancient law, but by something far stronger, a shared purpose and a bond that transcended the stars themselves. High above, beyond Zoraxis's atmosphere, the first battles of a war that would span 7 worlds had already begun. And somewhere in the vastness of space, 6 more worlds waited, unaware that their futures were now tied to the unlikely partnership formed when an alien warrior hurled a spear at a human, and he caught it.